The provincial government is facing a human rights challenge from families of LGBTQ youth, and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says it will seek a court injunction to keep the updated sex ed curriculum in classrooms. What began with statements of concern from school boards and petitions from healthcare groups is now moving into the legal realm, as groups look to stop the province from forcing teachers to revive the 1998 curriculum, which makes no mention of cyberbullying, consent or same-sex families. Jake Somerville of Guelph is part of a group of families launching a rights challenge of the Ontario government's use of the 1998 sex ed curriculum, saying it harms LGBTQ children. At least 6 families are taking part in the case being filed next week with Ontario's Human Rights Tribunal. Canadian Press Ho. Michael Bryant, Executive Director of the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, said as soon as the Ministry of Education issues a formal directive to school boards to use the old curriculum, something that is expected soon, given the school year begins in a little over 3 weeks, his group will apply for an injunction before Ontario's Superior Court of Justice to stop the sex ed directive in its tracks. In a separate action, at least 6 families are taking part in a case being filed next week with Ontario's Human Rights Tribunal, saying their children will be harmed and their rights violated by the old curriculum. Bryant said his organization's challenge will take a different approach. Article continued below. The focus is more on the government action and how it's being done. He said, though we still require some evidence of harm, our focus will be less on what's in it and more how they are doing it. He said the government is repealing a fully consulted 2015 sex ed curriculum and, without consultation, replacing it with the 1998 lesson plan. Given the stakes involved, that probably violates administrative law, he said. During the election, Premier Doug Ford promised to repeal the sex ed curriculum and consult parents across the province, given it proved controversial among social conservatives. At Queen's Park on Thursday, Ford said his government will talk to parents, on math, on sciences, but also on the sex ed, and will visit all 124 ridings. Do you know what puts our children at risk? When we don't consult their parents, and we listen to a bunch of politicians and we listen to a bunch of activists, the Premier said during question period. NDP education critic Peggy Sattler, London West, said she expects more legal challenges on the issue, calling it shameful that this government is forcing people in this province to take legal action. Article continued below. Former Liberal Education Minister Mitzi Hunter, the MPP for Scarborough-Guildwood, called it irresponsible for this government to rip out the curriculum and not replace it with something that is new and improved. The human rights case involves families of elementary school kids from Toronto, Guelph and Sudbury, with the main applicant being an 11-year-old trans youth from rural Ontario. Kristen Rishowi is a Toronto-based reporter covering Ontario politics. Follow her on Twitter, @Preshowi.